Welcome to the ThomaHawk Show. Ladies and gentlemen, I am your humblest of all co-hosts, Andrew Hawkins, joined as always by the first offensive lineman in NFL history, number 73 in your programs, number 73 in your hearts, Joe Thomas. Joe, how you doing today, man?
I'm doing, if I said good, I would be a liar because my hopes have been dashed. My ego is right on the floor right now. It was a really tough Sunday to be a Browns fan with all the hype and excitement going into the season, and especially this home opener. I think everybody kind of expected, the Titans, they're not that good of a team. Yeah. This should be a nice warm-up. We get Baker out there. He throws 3 touchdowns. We pull him out in the middle of the third quarter. You have a nice 21-point lead, and you coast in for the victory.
You were really upset because you were getting way ahead of us. You can't even stop yourself from jumping into this game. So before I'm not gonna let you continue. I'm gonna cut you off per usual.
Well, that's why I'm doing shitty, is because the Browns got blown out.
I should have never asked that off the top.
I didn't expect that.
All right,
so go ahead.
I'll say this.
How are you doing?
Before we do, if you guys want to interact with the show, I need you to hit us up on Instagram, Twitter, Reddit at ThomaHawk Show. Our Facebook group is ThomaFlock, and our voicemail line, which we need you to hit up and give us your concerns. Call us and tell us how shitty you're doing because the Browns lost. 440-628-1376. I'm okay, man. I had a good weekend. I was watching you get inducted into the Wisconsin Hall of Fame, and I was a little jealous because I thought I was really hoping I would get inducted into the Wisconsin Hall of Fame. Me and my son watched Remember the Titans, and he hated it. He hated Remember the Titans. He hated it.
Wait,
yo.
How is that possible?
Well, he's 7. So this is going to get.
When you're 7, that makes even less sense because when you're 7, just watching any movie, you love it. My kids have never seen a movie they don't like, and they've watched some bad movies.
And he is a football head. Let me explain to you how much of a football head he is. He plays fantasy football. He plays Madden all day. He can name probably the top 30 players on every single team. It's all he wants to do. He sleeps with a football every single night. His entire life, 7 years. I don't tell him to do it. He sleeps with a football, right? So I'm like, this is a slam dunk home run. Great time for a father and son. We're going to watch the best football movie ever. What I don't realize is he's 7 and he has no idea about prejudice. He has no idea why people wouldn't want to go to school together. He has no idea that people die in car accidents, right? Oh. So this entire thing was just like heavy on. He was depressed the rest of the day. So I was like, man, I probably should have had a couple of conversations with him first before. But that was my weekend, man. But I did feel better about you getting inducted into the Wisconsin Hall of Fame. So tell us about
thank you.
Tell us about your Saturday because it clearly went better than mine.
Well, it was really a great weekend. I had a great Friday night. We had the banquet for the Wisconsin Hall of Fame. And then Saturday, they brought all the inductees to the football game for the introduction at halftime and like the formal announcement to the crowd of all the inductees. And we got amazing ovation from the crowd. I think there was 11 or 12 of us. And it really moved me. And I posted a little video on my Twitter page after that because I was riding home with my wife and I was just talking with her about how special it was and how when you go into those situations, you don't know how you're going to react emotionally. And up until that point, it was pretty cool. I was really excited. I was happy, but I wasn't like overwhelmed emotionally until all of a sudden they announced my name and the crowd like really went crazy and I didn't expect it, right? Yeah. Because as an offensive lineman, you kind of go unnoticed, especially in college. Like in the pros, it's a little bit different because you're in one place for a long time. Being in Cleveland for 11 years and having a lot of turnover. I mean, I realized that Browns fans, they loved me for my loyalty and for the career that I had in Cleveland and the dedication that I had to the team through all the losing. And because I was friends with Andrew Hawkins, who's the most famous Cleveland Brown of all time. So they have to love me and they have to cheer for me. But in Wisconsin, like I wasn't part of any Rose Bowl teams. I wasn't part of any great memorable teams. Yeah, we had a lot of success. We went 12-1 my senior year, but it also happened to be the year that Ohio State and Michigan were undefeated into their game, and I think Ohio State won the national championship possibly that year. But anyways, like I wasn't a running back. I didn't set any great records at the school, and so largely I kind of just assumed that Wisconsin fans didn't even know who I was, and I was kind of expecting like the golf star from the 70s to get the round of applause. And then when I got up there, I would get like a golf clap, like, oh, that's great.
Yeah.
He's a football player. I'm sure he was great. Well, that's great. But they actually like showed me a lot of love, and it kind of caught me off guard, and it meant a lot. So I felt like after a couple of beers, which is what you do when you watch football, to pull up the Twitter page is what they always say you should do, right? After a few beers, you should pull up your Twitter and make a Twitter video, right? And so that's what I did, and I was a little emotional, but I felt like it was appropriate because I was really feeling thanks.
It was the humblest thing I've ever seen in my life. It was like, that's why.
And you watch this show on repeat during the week, which is usually the humblest thing
exactly.
that you get to see. But
so I have a question.
Are
you sure JJ Watt wasn't standing like right behind you?
I need to go back and watch the video because there's a distinct possibility that JJ Watt was standing right behind me, and they were actually cheering for that guy.
Yeah.
That dude was the one getting the round of applause. But Wisconsin blew out Central Michigan, and the hype Sunday morning for the Browns game was insane. I was going to church with my Browns polo on.
So proud.
I was just so excited. Everything was going good. The kids were behaving. They weren't fighting as much as they usually do. I got a workout in before church. We were going to go for a nice brunch after church. The brunch we go to is all you can eat, and I pack in a lot of eggs and bacon, let me tell you.
Yeah,
so everything was going so good. The first drive of the Browns game.
Stop. I'm stopping you again.
We'll talk about that
before
later.
we get there. We're going to say this. Listen, you can see our beautiful faces now on the ThomaHawk Show. Every Sunday, we're doing a video episode. So you go to YouTube, at Uninterrupted's YouTube page, subscribe, and you'll be able to watch me and Joe talk. You'll be able to see the buffoonery that comes out of his mouth instead of just listening on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you listen to your podcast. Also subscribe, rate 5 stars, all of that good stuff. We're also going to drop our Wednesday episode on YouTube as well. I don't know if there's going to be video there. Is there going to be video there? No video there, but you can still listen, you can still watch, and you can imagine what we look like on that one. Joe is drunk right now with grief, and as you can tell so far from the episode, the dude is chomping to talk about the Browns loss. On today's show, we talk Kyler, we talk Lamar, we talk Mahomes, we talk AB. I can't wait to talk AB. Joe, you were so lucky the news dropped yesterday before we got to get on these mics, because I was about to fire your ass up. All right, we also bring back Am I Tripping, and what else? 3 and Out?
Yep.
We'll bring back 3 and Out. So, but first we're going to start with our segment. Every single week we have to give you an update on our Cleveland Browns. Although Joe has tried 30 times so far in 5 minutes to give you that, it's time for a new segment that is sponsored and a trademark infringement of Christian Kirksey called Dog Check. Let's get to it.
Dog check!
Joe, tell me exactly what went wrong with the Cleveland Browns on Sunday versus the Tennessee Titans.
So that's a big conversation, but I will start off with what went right.
If only you had a podcast to have that,
because that's a lot shorter. Yeah. What went right? Well, as you saw, the very first drive of the game was one of the most beautiful things I've ever seen on a football field. They went down the field like it was Saturday walkthrough. They were throwing the ball all over the field to different receivers. Higgy, Hollywood got involved early on. They were putting the ball on the goal line and punching it in one run play. Nick Chubb was slicing and dicing. OBJ was getting involved. I mean, it was perfect. They even overcame a couple penalties and a few miscues. I mean, it was exactly like you'd want that first drive to be. And then the penalties started.
Ooh.
They had 18 penalties for almost 200 yards of penalties, and you figure 100 yards of anything, either in the kicking game or a penalty, is worth 7 points. So if you have 200 yards of penalties, that's essentially like giving up 14 points to your opponent, which still wouldn't have allowed them to win this game. Unfortunately, it was that much of a blowout. But when you have so many penalties, you're just killing every single drive. And anytime they had something going well, they would get a penalty or a stupid error, and they would just move back. And when you get set behind the chains like that, it's so difficult to overcome. And when you look at the stat line at the end of the game, outside of Baker's 3 interceptions, 25 of 38, that's not too bad. That actually is a better completion percentage and more completions than Marcus Mariota had. But when you factor in those 3 interceptions, one of them went for a touchdown, and you saw how the wheels fell off towards the end of the third quarter. they didn't have anybody that was out there that was able to stop the bleeding. Nobody could apply that tourniquet to the team and stop the slide and stop the bleeding in the end of that third quarter. And the Titans just ran away with it, and it turned into such an ugly loss, 43-13, that the team is going to be feeling so much worse right now than what they probably actually played like on that field. But I'm looking on the bright side. That's probably actually a good thing, right? If this team needs humble pie, because there's been an unbelievable amount of expectations and hype going into this season, that you even heard it from Delaney Walker. I think the comment after this game was they were who they thought they were, and they were all excited. You could tell those Titans really wanted to talk about how they were motivated to put the Browns in their place. What they saw was a team that hasn't accomplished anything yet. I'm going to cut you off here, and this is what I'm going to say. I'm going to say a couple things. I'm not going to get too much into specifics. We all seen the game, but that is the problem. The reason why quarterbacks, the reason why teams, and the reason why this is so hard for a team that everyone calls overhype is because we got the magazine covers. Everybody is talking about what we're going to do, and we're building off a lot of success last year. Well, what you set yourself up for is every single team you play against now, you are going to get their absolute best, right? So you just got the best version of the Titans because, like you said, all they wanted to do was shut this team up. They wanted to be the team to kill the hype. The head coach is preaching about it the entire week, probably the entire football camp, about, when we get in here, we want to make them look stupid and silly. And they kind of did that. But guess what? They got 15 more weeks that every single team they play against, even playing the Jets, and you can say what you want about the Jets, they're not that good, or their defense, whatever you do say, you're going to get the best version of them. And that's what the hype brings. That's what all the talking in the offseason brings. So you better be, I'm not saying it's not a good thing, but what I'm saying is you better bring your A game every single week because everybody else is bringing theirs. And like you said, a lot of those players have egg on their face. They're feeling embarrassed, as they rightly should. A lot of fans, we rode that entire offseason wave talking about this. You picked them to win the Super Bowl. I'm not going to say it's not going to happen, but I'm still standing by it. It's only 0-1.
Yeah, I mean, and you're known for spending dumb money. But at this point, all I'm saying is when you get smacked like that in the season opener at home, and you can't use the excuse we don't have the players, right? We have no one will look at the Titans roster and the Browns roster and say the Titans is a superior roster. So all those excuses are out the window. So when you're boasting about how great you are, and I'm not saying they're not talented, they are super effing talented, which is why everybody is frustrated. But again, you better deliver. Here's the bright side. And I know I'm going long, but I don't care, Joe. Here's the bright side.
Because I got something to say. But go ahead.
Absolutely. Two things. First bright side. It's one game. That loss is a good thing, right? It's like when a very
you can
good
use
team,
that during the season. Any more losses, you can always say, well, they've only lost one game today. So keep that one in the memory bank for you.
But you know, like when the really good teams lose a game right before the playoffs, it's like perfect because you want that sting to be there, so you realize what it feels like. With all the hype and everybody riding the waves, I feel like this kind of team with the personalities they have, I feel like it's going to be good for them. They needed that sting. They need to feel embarrassed for a couple days, and so they can right the wrong sooner than later. I'd rather happen in week 1 than the week 12 or week 10 and beyond, right? The second good thing is when you don't play your guys in preseason and you don't have a bunch of time to build chemistry. Offenses take longer to build the chemistry than defense. And I'm not saying the defense played good. All I'm saying is that the offense, 3 interceptions from Baker Mayfield, they didn't play great. They didn't gel. They had a couple of good drives that were really good, but for the most part, they were out of sync. We know Baker's going to take his chances. He took 3 too many in situations. All those interceptions will come back on him. The offensive line didn't protect the way they should have. The run game wasn't great, right? Like it didn't scare the Titans. And again, the Titans were just up for a different level. So to lose like that at home is alarming. It's hard to beat other NFL teams by that much, let alone on the road. So they have a lot to correct. But again, it's early and they're still finding their chemistry. Yeah. These are superstars that are learning to play together. Remember when Braun came back and they had Kyrie and Kevin Love? When they first came back in 2014, they were terrible. If you remember watching the Cavaliers, like the first 20 games of the season, it was almost embarrassing. And that's when like Braun took a break for a little bit. But they were learning each other. As the season went on, they became what everybody expected. And eventually the next year they ended up winning a championship. It just takes time when you have that many superstars in the room to find that cohesion.
Yeah, these guys haven't played together, and we all think that, okay, this is Baker and Freddie's second year together, but really, this is Freddie's first year with this group of guys running truly his own offense that he's had a whole offseason to put together, and that he has an offensive coordinator that's new. Todd Monken came from Tampa Bay last year and is going to have a lot of input on this offense. So what we're seeing, this version of the Browns offense in 2019 is different than last year. And so while they're trying to build on what they did last year, and certainly there's going to be a lot of concepts that have carried over, there's a lot of new faces on the coaching staff, and Freddie Kitchens is in a different role running somewhat of a different offense, and it's going to take some time for this group to gel together. OBJ wasn't there. They've got a lot of pieces that weren't there last year. And then you talk about, okay, they lost Greg Robinson at the beginning of the game because he got kicked out for kicking the dude in the face, which that was a bonehead play.
Let's pause real quick. Can we please talk about Greg Robinson double kicking someone in the face? He missed with the left leg.
I want to say that was one of the most athletic moves I've ever seen a big man do, because he went with the leg kick with the left leg and missed, and was somehow able to swing then with his right leg and kick the dude right in the face without landing on the ground. That was some incredible ninja kung fu magic mastery. I've never seen anything so athletic. I think they should have let him stay in the game just for how athletic that double kick was.
Should have been offsetting penalties. Like, you shouldn't kick them in the face, but it was super athletic. We're gonna pick up the flag. Congratulations on having an athletic left tackle. Can we play a game of guess the fine?
Well, the fine is going to be around $25,000. That would be my over/under, I think, for the fine. What do you think?
I'm going to go
the
with
over or the under.
15,721. That's my guess for the fine
way
for
too
Greg
low.
Robinson. That's too low?
Way too low, because first of all, he got kicked out of the game, so it's going to be the unnecessary roughness to like the second degree.
Okay.
15,000 right now is if you just get like a regular chop block. They'll nail you for 15,000,
really?
And you don't get thrown out. So if you're going to get thrown out, it's at least over 21,000. And I think because he kicked him in the face, that has to be an add-on 5 to 10,000 right there. So I'm saying 25,000, and I feel pretty good about that. But you're taking the under.
I'm taking the under. I'm going 15,721. That's
all
my
right.
number.
Well, I want to go back to what your point was about the hype.
I never had a point.
The point about the Browns being hyped and how they're going to get every team's best, I just want to make a quick point about that, because I think we can accept that rivalry games in the NFL, like Browns, Steelers, Ravens, like those games, typically you see the best version of each of those teams come out, because there's some bad blood, there's some hate between the two of them. And so during the course of the week, all those players that maybe aren't always maximally motivated during that week of preparation become maximally motivated, because it is a big game. It means more for whatever reason. And I think right now, when you're the team that has all the excitement and all the hype around you, like the Browns do, it becomes a one-sided rivalry game. So it's almost like, when Toledo comes into Wisconsin, you're going to get the best version of Toledo, because all those guys, they know this is the biggest stage they're ever going to play on in their lives, because none of those guys are ever going to go on and play in the NFL. They're never going to play in front of 80,000 screaming fans again. So it's almost like a rivalry game, the way they prepare, the way they come into the game with excitement. They're trying to knock this team down a peg. And so that's what you get when you are that team that has all the commercials. I mean, Baker was in at least 75% of the commercials on my TV today. He was mowing lawns. He was selling Hulu. He was getting money dumped on him. I can't imagine how much money he's made this offseason doing commercials, because he's like the face of the NFL right now. But when NFL players see that guy, and that's the guy that they're going to be playing against this week, they see him on their TV every single day, every single commercial, they get sick of it. They get annoyed with it, because there's a little bit of a jealousy factor, right? In your mind, you're like, screw that dude. Like, he's getting all this money being on all those commercials. I could do that. He's not that great. And you want to knock him down a peg so bad. So the Browns are going to get everybody's best shot because of the situation that they're in. So that's what they got from Tennessee. They got a one-sided rivalry game, and they were not able to match that intensity, that preparation, that focus level they got from Tennessee. And I'm going to point to those 18 penalties. Yeah. A lot of them pre and post snap penalties. To me, that's a lack of focus. And for a coach like Freddie Kitchens, who's priding himself on his discipline, his Parcells background, his accountability, he has got to be absolutely furious to be embarrassed like that, but to be embarrassed in the manner that they were with the number of penalties that the Browns had.
And can I speak for everybody in the football world when I say the Titans aren't that good? Like I'm not hating. Okay. I'm not. They played an incredible football game. Just the Titans are going to go 9-7. Mariota is okay. I love him. He's probably the nicest guy in the entire NFL now that Andrew Luck is retired. But to be honest, they're not that good. Like, they're not beating anybody else 43-13 for the rest of the season.
No. Okay, Marcus Mariota. By the way, it's Mariota. So we did
Mariota,
the Tennessee
Mariota,
Jacksonville.
tomato.
We did the Tennessee Jacksonville game last year on Thursday Night Football, and I would say the number one thing I learned in that production meeting is his name is not Mariota. If you call him Mariota, you're going to get fired. So I was like, wow, I better practice in my mirror. So I'm there in my whitey tighties, standing in my hotel mirror in Nashville, Tennessee, going Marcus Mariota, Marcus Mariota, Marcus Mariota. Because if you say anything 7 times, you're going to remember it. But Marcus Mariota was 7-11 for 217 yards, 3 touchdowns on play action passes in this game, right? So naturally, if that's Kyle Shanahan's offense, if that's Jared Goff for the Rams, I'm going, whew, he threw the ball down the field. He had some great throws. He must have had a great game. But we forget that Marcus Mariota scored on like an 80-yard screen pass. So almost a third of that was on one screen pass.
The other one,
and then you look down here.
Delaney Walker.
Most of his targets were tight ends and running backs, which to me, that means easy stuff in the middle of the field to your tight end, sometimes in the red zone, and dump offs to your running backs, either screens, swing passes, or checkdowns. So it's not like Marcus shredded this defense. The only big play that their defense gave up was at the beginning of the game where it looked like Demarius Randall got a little bit confused on a 2-man play action route of if he should push to the right side of the field or if he should take the deep over route, which I'm talking receiver play, which I know nothing about, but I clearly knew somebody should have covered that guy. And so for me, Marcus didn't beat him. He was not a stellar quarterback that just shredded the Browns defense. It was the mistakes they made. And then of course it was the protection issues that they had with Baker, who got sacked 5 times, I think, which was the number of times he got sacked the last 7 games last year. He got sacked 5 times or something like that. So, which wasn't all on the offensive line. The offensive line didn't play their best game, especially the tackles. But I would say part of the issue was I felt like Baker was pressing a little bit too much. He wants to show everybody how great this offense is going to be. And to me, he was hanging on to the ball a little bit too long. He was trying to force the ball down the field. As you know, we've played in those play action offenses together. Kyle Shanahan, he wants to go deep. He wants to throw a lot of those deep bombs. You saw early on in the game, the Browns were running all sorts of play action, run action type protections where they were trying to push that ball down the field, and it wasn't always there. But Baker was trying to hang on to it, and because he knew if you give it one more clutch, he's going to get Odell open. And they paid the price because he was getting sacked on a lot of those plays. And I'm a little concerned because you get your franchise quarterback hit as much as they did. And some of those, he got himself hit by the number of seconds he was holding on the football. But a quarterback cannot survive an NFL season getting hit the way that he was getting hit in this game. So a lot to be concerned with.
Yeah, no, I'm not going to go as hard as I want to right now because it was just one week.
That was just one game.
Oh yeah, it was one game. They got to figure it out, and we'll leave it at that. All right, let's move on. Let's move on to our second segment.
Let's do something to make ourselves feel better.
Let's do something.
Take another drink of bourbon.
Take another sip of this coffee. Delicious. All right, so we're going to head into our second segment, which is Tama Headline.
This is a special report from
Tama Headline.
And I'm going to kick this one off because I'm going to give Joe an opportunity here. My man John, producer John Fontenelli, right to the left of me as always. He has it written in the rundown a certain way. I'm going to change it up. We're going to talk about the Ravens and the shellacking they put on the Miami Dolphins. But before we talk about the game, I'm going to give Joe an opportunity to apologize to Lamar Jackson and also say why he's apologizing to Lamar Jackson in depth and why he was wrong about the take that he gave about Lamar Jackson not too long ago. Joe, the floor is yours.
What I would like to say is anything that is done against the Miami Dolphins this year does not count in the NFL record books for the 2019 season, because you have a team that has built itself to try and lose. And that's exactly what they did. They went out and they got their butts whipped. They lost very well. I will say, I have cracked the door open just a little bit to your side of things. And I feel like the biggest flaw of humankind is their inability to admit when they're wrong. Mm-hmm. I'm not wrong on this one yet, but I will admit that I maybe could be wrong, and I want to see at least a couple more games before I say that I was wrong about your man. Lamar Jackson, his stats were amazing. 17 for 20, 324 passing yards, 5 passing touchdowns, 0 interceptions, 158 passer ratings, career highs, pass yards, TDs, and ratings.
He threw for 6 touchdown passes last year in 7 games. He threw for 5 today. Let that sink in.
He had a great game. Let's be honest. But I want to see him stand in the pocket, and I want to see him shred a NFL defense.
Why?
And then I will
don't
say,
get it. I'm not saying he's going to be the next Michael Vick. I'm not saying he's the next Tom Brady. But why does he have to do that if that's not his game? Why?
Because I think that has to, because that is exactly my point. Because that's what he has to do to be able to survive in the NFL long term. Why? No matter who you are, if you're a quarterback in the NFL, you have to be able to throw the football when you need to throw the football. Because there's going to be third down situations in the NFL where you have to throw the football and convert and pick it up consistently. Otherwise, teams are too good defensively. They're too smart. They have too much time on their hands to craft defenses that can stop what you do from the running game. And if you're a quarterback that solely or mostly relies on running the football, you're going to get hurt and you're not going to be able to survive an NFL season. You need to be able to throw from the pocket, at least at times, and then you need to be able to throw when you're outside the pocket as well. It can't be all running the football. Now, he's proven that he can throw the football a little bit right now.
Before
I
you
just
go
want
on,
to see him do it consistently.
Read me Lamar Jackson's rushing yards today.
Well, he probably didn't have many because they were winning by so damn much. He didn't have to take any risks. But I'm saying if it's a close game and they're kind of playing tighter defensively and they're not giving him touchdowns like the Dolphins were, he's going to have to throw some of these hard passes.
3 rushes,
our boy
yards.
RG3. Look, our boy RG3 played a perfect game. He was 6 for 6 too. With
Don't try to blame RG3.
I'm not blaming him. Okay, I'm blaming him a little bit. But I'm just saying that RG3 had just as productive a day, just not as long as Lamar Jackson.
Okay, all right. I don't know if you're giving Lamar love or you're hating on RG3. We're going to leave it there.
Either way, it's bad.
Either way, we can't come to a conclusion yet. Yeah. Let's talk about the Dolphins. There's reports out that the players are forming a mutiny, which I don't want to say I don't believe it because I do believe it, but I'm always reluctant for these reports with no names and no agents and nobody coming out and actually saying it because they're trying to prevent the tanking. But players are saying they're clearly tank for Tua 2020, and they're saying that players want out. And I have a very, very strong opinion on this, but I'm going to kick it to you first. Let you start us off.
So first of all, I don't even know what a mutiny means because I know what a mutiny means when you're on a sea vessel and you mutiny and you kill your captain and throw him overboard and you put a new captain in there.
I think that's exactly what they're saying.
But they're going to go kill their coach?
They're going to kill the captain.
They're going to go kill their coach and their GM and their owner and be like, hey, we don't want to tank anymore, but it's too late. I can understand that a lot of these veterans that understand what's happening that don't want to be a part of this are going to ask for a trade, but what happens if the Dolphins say no? What are you going to do then? They can't trade everybody.
How do you feel about the veterans? Do they have a right to be peed off?
So when I was in this situation in Cleveland and it became apparent to me clearly that we were playing for the future, I'm not going to use the T word.
Yeah.
But I'm going to say it was very clear and obvious. The strategy was not to re-sign the quality players that we had, and we started trading players and other draft picks for future draft picks. So it was clear that you were moving your resources from current years to future years, which is sort of a hallmark of the T word.
Yeah.
I don't care as much about this year or even next year, but I'm going to kind of save these resources and just push them on down the line for when we have a better opportunity, because we don't think we are good enough currently to make the playoffs. So rather than go 8-8 or 7-9 and get like a medium draft pick, let's just go 0-16 or 1-15 and guarantee a first overall pick this year, first overall pick next year. We can even trade back from those and then get more picks, because future picks are always worth more than current picks, because no GM and head coach wants to save draft picks for the next guy, right? That's the classic saying. So when it became very apparent in Cleveland, I was very bitter and mad, especially as you see these great players that are going out the door, right? Just when you feel like you're building this nucleus of young players. But being like the rational thinker that I was, I realized that if I was in the ownership GM situation that the Browns were in at that time, I would probably do the exact same thing that they would, right? This is the best strategy to try to build for long-term success. While you now become the sacrificial lamb, I had to sort of accept that, right? Because for me, then you had to sort of change your outlook on why do you come to work every day. It didn't mean I came to work anymore to try to win a championship this year, because you knew that wasn't the strategy of the organization at the time. You knew that it was more about building for the future. So now as a player, my contract doesn't change. So my commitment and what they're asking me to do doesn't change. I still have to block for the quarterback. I have to block for the running back. I have to show up, be a great teammate, try to be a great leader, be a great captain, like do everything I'm still required to do by this contract. But the goal in mind is, okay, we're not going to win the Super Bowl. It's, all right, we're going to build the best foundation we possibly can. I'm going to try to help all these guys build the best version of themselves that they possibly can, so that in the future, then when maybe I'm not even here anymore, they can look back and say that the struggles we had in those tough years made me a better, tougher player with more resolve and maybe better character, and made me a better man and a better person down the line. And, I can thank Joe Thomas for jumping on that grenade for me and living through the hell of 0-16 and 1-15. But it's a tough situation to be in, right? Because we as professional athletes, our whole life, why do we show up every day? We're trying to win. Winning's the only thing, right? It's not everything. It's the only thing, Lombardi said.
What's it like for you living in the world of cupcakes and roses? I've never lived there before.
That's a great question. I would love to hear your take, because you've been sitting there so quiet, looking so handsome on the other side of my screen, just angry. That's
a given, but you're boiling my blood. That's why, just to rope this all back, and this is a storyline that we're going to continue to develop as the year goes on for a lot of reasons. But just circling back to the Browns' loss, that's why fans are pissed off. And even players, like even as a guy who played and am now a fan of the Browns, like there's no ill will, obviously no ill will to the Browns. I love the Browns, love the organization, love what they've done for me, not just while a player, even post-career. But it pisses me off because in that moment, for the players of the Dolphins who understand that they are, quote unquote, building for the future, no T word, building for the future, that are on the last 2 years of their career, you're not playing for character. Like, you're not playing in the NFL in year 9, year 10, year 8, year 7, year 6 for character. That's not what you signed up for. So when I was with the Browns, and it took a little bit of time for us to realize it, but we learned pretty quickly, like, it wasn't just like we're not going to win the Super Bowl. Because that makes it seem like, we might get to the playoffs. We might go 9-7. We went into games.
I was being kind. We knew we weren't going to go to the playoffs.
We were going into games knowing we weren't going to win. And that's tough. That's tough to get yourself up. And yes, you're playing for both the team and the name on the back, your own pride as a professional in your job. And we did that. But that didn't make it any less hard. That didn't make you want to continue to play in the National Football League. That didn't make you say, like, man, I can't wait to get back here next year. I remember mid-season thinking, like, damn, this is it. I'm retiring after this year. Whatever, like, because it was draining, man. Like, you don't like being talked about in the media that way. You don't like reading tweets. You don't like people laughing at you in the street in the way that people around the world would talk about you. You don't play your whole life, devote everything you're doing to the game for that to be it. Yeah, for a front office guy, it makes sense. For an organization, I get it. You build to the future. But as a player, do they have the right to be pissed off? Absolutely. Do they have the right to ask for a trade? Yes, I think they do. Like, you're not trying to win. You can lose with or without me. Let me go somewhere else if possible. You know what I'm saying? That's what part that pees me off. Watching the Browns now in the first game, and again, I'm not acting like the sky is falling down. It was one game. They're building, they know each other. But the reality is the fans are going to say, I thought that's why we went 1-31. I thought that was why we were the worst and laughing stock of all of professional sports, so that now that we're the talented roster, we get W's. There's supposed to be a payoff at the end. For those veteran players, the Dolphins, there is no payoff. There is no payoff. Brian Flores like, I'm not tanking. Of course you're not tanking. You don't realize you're not tanking. You think you have the opportunity to build to the future? If you go 1-31 in 2 years, guess what's going to happen to you? They're not going to say, they traded away their best tackle. They got these 2 first-round picks in the future. They traded all their good players away. It's okay. We understand. No, we've seen what that looks like. They're not going to say that. And he probably won't be a head coach for a while, right? Like, so for a lot of people, it sucks. And I just for the sanctity of football, again, we won't use the T word, even though I've accidentally used it a lot of times. Building for the future is bad for football.
And the reason you don't use the tank word is because a lot of people want to jump on that right away and say, well, no players or coaches would purposely try to lose. But that's not what tanking is in the NFL or in pro sports, because those players are going out there. And first of all, it might be different than baseball or basketball because it's a physical sport. And that if you give anything less than everything you've got, either you're going to get hurt or the dudes that you're supposed to be protecting are going to get hurt.
Yep.
So that trumps everything, no matter what it is. And second of all, the organization, even if they came to you and said, hey, buddy, why don't you try to lose this one for us? They would never do that. But if they did, you'd be like, screw you, because no matter what happens, when I go out there, people are watching me on film and they're grading me on what I do and how I perform. Yes. And they don't care that maybe somebody else told me not to play at my best. So you're always going to get your best effort. But what tanking means in the NFL or in pro sports is that the organization, the GM, the owner, whoever it is, puts together a roster that can't possibly win. Yes. Because they've gotten rid of all of their best assets because they've used those assets and traded for future draft picks or players in the future. And so I've got no problem with the Dolphins players asking for a trade. And I reflect back again on us when we went through the difficulties in Cleveland, the 1-31 or whatever it was. I mean, it broke me mentally. It did.
Yeah.
I've talked on here before about speaking with a psychologist about it, because trying to get yourself into the mode of, okay, it's okay, we're not trying to win, but I still need to go out and play as well as I can. Like that's hard to go out and then lose every single week. But I think the reason why I didn't ask for a trade was because I was so invested in Cleveland at that time, and I had already become mentally like a Clevelander and a Cleveland Brown. Like this was my franchise and my city, and I didn't want to go anywhere. I didn't really care what the situation was. Like I wanted to be in Cleveland, period. And I think to myself, if I would have been year 3, 4, 5, and this would have been the situation I was in, would I've asked for a trade at that point? Because I wasn't so as invested in Cleveland at that time, because I was young in my career. I'd only lived in Cleveland for 3-4 years at that time, rather than having 3 children there, having my wife feel like she was born and raised in Cleveland, having me feel like I'd born and raised in Cleveland, having all the friends we have, having the emotional connection with the ownership and with the fan base and our neighbors and all the people in the organization. Like you just become so invested when you're in one place for as long as we were. And the love that we felt in Cleveland and vice versa was so deep that I would never have even considered a trade. But I'm thinking back, like if this was my second or third year, if now the Dolphins, I was in Miami at that time, I think I probably would ask for a trade, right?
Yeah.
Because why would you want to put yourself through that?
Dude, it was the worst. It was and I don't think people understand. Like, I get that you have simulations and you have like your scores and you have your stat lines. You don't get, as a professional athlete, as a football player, you go into every game expecting with a chance to win. Like, there's no other way to play. Like, you have to have that. You have to have that irrational thinking. And so to start going into games where we knew there were times in a 53-man roster, we had over 30 rookies active. That is half a college football team. There is no way you can compete.
And they weren't 30 first-round picks.
And they weren't like all like the top picks, man. And it was like, yo,
30
this
Baker
guy was
Mayfields,
working at a
Myles
grocery
Garrett,
store
Kyler
last
Murray's.
week. Like, and he is starting. Like, it's terrible. It's emotional. And I know we can belabor this point as we always do.
Yeah,
so
let's move on.
We'll move on. All right, 2 other Tama headlines we have. There was 2 overtime games on Sunday, and I'm going to sink them into one topic, and I'm going to ask you, which moral victory was better? The Chargers outlasted the Colts in overtime, but Jacoby Brissett played pretty good, and it was actually like a kind of an array of hope for the Colts. So Jacoby Brissett, Kyler Murray tied who'd they play? The Lions. Lions playing in Arizona. Lions were favored. Ended in a tie. Kyler Murray came back from down 18 points to take him into overtime and get a tie. Which moral victory is better, Joe? Is it Kyler getting the tie or Jacoby pushing the Chargers to overtime?
This one's easy. It was Kyler getting the tie because of how it happened. The Cardinals looked pretty pathetic most of preseason. Nobody really knew what that offense was going to look like. There was really no rays of hope whatsoever that we'd seen from them. The beginning of that game was pretty terrible. Kyler started out really bad. The Cardinals just looked pathetic. They got into a pretty good sized hole, and all of a sudden it was like a light came on, and all of a sudden Kyler started hitting throws. Larry Fitzgerald started playing like he was 35 again.
It's like he was 41 again.
And all of a sudden they started looking really good. The defense was playing well, and they were able to claw their way back to a tie game, went into overtime. They ended up tying the game, which we don't know how good the Lions are, but we kind of assume they're going to be okay. This is Matt Patricia's second season, so we feel like they're probably going to be a little bit better there on defense. He's kind of known as a defensive wizard from his time in New England. Mm-hmm. Matt Stafford, he's a guy that gets a lot of stats, and some people think he's really good. Some people think, yeah, he's just average. But either way, you feel like that roster's pretty well put together, and they're pretty well coached. And you feel like overall, if anybody was going to pick that game for the most part, unless you're a Cardinals fan, you're going to think the Lions were going to go down there and probably win by double digits. And so for the Cardinals to be able to be in that big hole with a rookie quarterback, that's an easy situation for the rest of that team to just give up. Just see like, oh, we're losing. Here we go again. We've got a rookie quarterback. He's playing crappy again. We've got a rookie head coach with an offense that really hasn't been proven in the NFL level. It's over. I'm just going to shut it down and preserve myself. But all of a sudden, they just started fighting. They got their way back into it, and they tied them up, and they had a chance to win. They didn't win. But either way, I think it was a really good moral victory for them, and they're going to have a lot to build on going into week 2.
No, you're right. Kyler made some throws that made you look like twice and say like, oh, wow, that was...
You're like, wow,
that was legit.
I guess he does deserve to be the first pick.
Yeah, he had 4 balls batted down at the line of scrimmage because he's 4'7". But besides that, the dude has a live arm. Shout out to the little guys, man. All right, next one. Next time a headline. The Chiefs dominated the Jags.
Before we move on, real quick.
Right, go ahead. Belabor this point,
Before
Joe.
we move on, we need to talk about should the NFL change the overtime rules, because week 1 of the NFL season, we have another tie, just like last season when the Steelers and the Browns tied in week 1.
It's stupid. The tie is the second dumbest rule in sports.
You're allowed to say that something's dumb, because in our culture today, it's always fun to say, you're an idiot, but you won't say what a better idea is. Well, what's a better idea?
The better idea is to keep playing until somebody wins. Is that hard to figure out?
So you have no clock. You just play forever. What happens if it goes an extra hour?
Whatever. That's what baseball does.
2 hours, 3 hours,
3 hours, 4 hours, 5 hours.
What do you guys think of the college rule for the NFL? Could that work?
Like from the 20?
Yeah, 25, and then you take away the extra point and makes teams go for 2.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it's harder to score in the red zone in NFL than it is college.
I don't like the college rule in the NFL, not because it's not exciting, but because I think you have to be careful of players' play counts. NFL is much more of a violent game. These are older men moving faster with more power and more strength and more speed. And I don't think you want to go an extra 30, 40 plays like sometimes we see in college football. I mean, some of these college football games are going 4 or 5 overtimes. And in the NFL, it's so hard to score in the red zone. You might just go back and forth kicking field goals for like 8 overtimes. And that's probably playing like an extra game. Can you imagine how much more sore and more injuries you're going to get if you're playing that much more football? So those were great suggestions, John and Hawk, but I'm telling you what the NFL is going to do is they're going to change the overtime rule, and I think what they should do is play about 7 minutes, and then after 7 minutes, if it's still tied, they should just alternate 2-point conversions. So
that's the
Cardinals get a 2-point conversion.
That's the answer, Joe.
That's the answer. Cardinals get a 2-point conversion. If they make it, the Lions get a chance to make it. If they don't make it, they lose. If they make it, now then the Lions go first. Boom. And then just go back and forth until one team makes it and then another team doesn't make it.
But that's
so it would
luck.
be thrilling. It would be so thrilling. It would be something that normally happens within the course of a game. And you would quickly find out a solution to who wins the game. Because
that is not interesting.
Somebody's probably going to make it within. How is that not interesting?
We might as well play Flip Cup for the win. Like
All right,
after one overtime,
at least somebody
we'll
wins
play
and
beer pong
loses.
for whoever has the best beer pong is the winner. 2-yard touchdowns. Who wants to watch that?
No. Even better. The starting quarterbacks have to have chugging contests.
Now you're talking. Now you're getting a little more interesting.
Browns
Yes,
16
right at midfield.
Exactly. Now we're working towards something. All right, next one. Chiefs dominated the Jags. Tyreek Hill and Nick Foles went out. Miles Jack got ejected. Did you watch this game?
No, because it happened early and I was watching Browns games.
So I work on the NFL Network. Joe doesn't have to work because he's way more important than me. So he puts in like 6 days throughout the year and he makes 5 times as much money as I do. Meanwhile, I work 9 days a week, sun up to sundown, graveyard shift, and I have to be there first thing in the morning. So I watched all the NFL games, and Patrick Mahomes is way better than everybody else. That is all you had to know from this thing. Like, if you watch the highlights, you'll notice there's like 15 different players who score and are in the highlights because Patrick Mahomes does it anywhere. There was one particular play that would fit perfect on the ThomaHawk Show. Mahomes, he's balling at the beginning. He gets real cute, and Travis Kelce is wide open in the back of the end zone. He throws a no look, and he just sails it like. Oh my gosh,
that was good. Yeah, I talked to some of my buddies on the Chiefs after this game, and they were like, yeah, Patrick Mahomes, he's amazing. But Andy Reid is the real genius in this game.
Yeah.
He goes, Andy Reid against the Jaguars, they shredded them last year and started the downfall of the Jaguars last year. And he shredded them again this year. They said Andy Reid's passing concepts versus a single high, which is what the Jaguars like to play. They like to play man-to-man. Mm-hmm. He said was unstoppable. And the run concepts they had to confuse their really fast linebackers, especially after Miles Jack got ejected. They had them confused up front. They had their secondary trying to play different coverages because they couldn't play man-to-man. And he said it was like watching a beautiful ballet. It was just amazing watching Patrick Mahomes throwing to all these guys just running wide open all over the field. And the Jaguars have a good defense.
Yeah, and it still got ugly. John, what did Miles Jack get ejected for?
Oh, fighting in the end zone.
Was it a punch or a kick?
It was a punch.
What would you rather get ejected for, Joe? A punch or a double leg kick that my man Robinson from the Browns got ejected
easily
for?
The double leg kick, because the double leg kick took a lot of athletic ability, and because it can actually inflict possible pain.
Yeah.
Like if I'm going to get into a fight and get injected, I want to be able to inflict pain on my enemy.
Okay.
There's no reason to try to punch a man in his helmet, ever. I never in my entire career, practice or a game, college, pro, or even in high school, tried to punch a man in his helmet. Because
have you ever gotten in a fight?
Only thing, I've gotten in lots of fights. The only thing that can happen when you try to punch another man in his helmet is you break your hand. That's the only thing that can happen. You think about how fast another man is moving with a helmet, which is much harder than your hand, collides into another man that's got a helmet on, and both those guys usually walk away unscathed. Now you think your little 2-pound fist, unprotected, is going to punch somebody in the helmet, and you're going to have some type of damage on that man's head. That is just the definition of losing your cool and losing your mind at the same time, which I never did. If I ever got into a fight, I would do one of two things. One, the chokehold, which is undefeated. Yeah. I put so many men to sleep
right now
during practice. Do you know how many players I put to sleep in practice when we would get in fights? Because I was pretty crafty. I was really good at being able to get them from behind.
You can't just be put to sleep in practice.
Chokehold.
You know how many people I have killed because if you put your hands, all right.
No, they would get pissed. Or the second move that works is the eye gouge or the eye poke.
Yeah,
like that's the only thing you should do if you're going to go to the head. But if you go to the punch, you're just an idiot.
Okay, this segment is brought to you by Vontaze Perfect. Subscribe to the podcast, rate 5 stars. All right, we're going to our favorite segment that hasn't been brushed off in over a calendar year, maybe not a calendar year. My math is off. But here we go. It's time for the legendary ThomaHawk segment called Am I Trippin'? All right, we got John Fontanelli here to tee us up on the Am I Trippin', because Zerm is on a mission trip in Zimbabwe. And Nat texted me this weekend saying that someone's demanding ransom. I told her I didn't have it at the moment and I'd get back to her. So we'll check on them later. But now we have John teeing us up for Am I Trippin'? What do we got?
Guys, first it was the cryo controversy. Then it was the helmet controversy. Then it was the Instagram post of the letter of the fine. Then there's the fight and the cussing out and the punting and then the apology. And then Friday night it was the black and white video of the phone call. Then fast forward to Saturday, Antonio Brown gets released by the Raiders, almost immediately signs a 1-year, $15 million deal with the Patriots. Then a report comes out that Antonio Brown consulted a social media expert on how to get released. Guys, am I tripping? Or is Antonio Brown an evil genius?
Diabolical genius. I'm not even going to let Joe get a chance to answer yet because I know he has hot takes. I'm watching Joe's Twitter all day, and I was agreeing with him along every sense of the way. And then I stopped myself, and I read Joe's tweet, and he said, Antonio's football career is done. And that's when it hit me, John. It was like an epiphany. A light bulb went off. And I said, wait a minute. I'm looking at like a tweet from Joe and a video from Terrell Owens. And Terrell Owens is saying AB is tripping. And Joe is saying AB will never play in the league again. And it dawned on me. I said, man, this is one of two things. I stopped thinking that AB was selfish and a bad teammate. I'm not saying those things aren't true. But what I started to think was this.
And a bad person.
Listen, I stopped thinking he was a bad person. That's exactly. I did definitely do that. Now, I have AB stories from back in the day. AB's a little off his rocker. You don't get to be the all-time great wide receiver. You can't have that amount of pressure on you and deliver as much as he does without being a little bit off your rocker. So I'm not arguing that. But what I realized at that moment, watching Joe's tweet, watching Terrell Owens, if Terrell Owens calls you a diva, if Terrell Owens tells you you are tripping, then I said, okay, wait a minute. There's one of two things going on here. One, this guy is certifiably nuts, right? Like, and that's a real thing that people still believe now. And I'm not saying, I don't even know if it's the wrong thing or not. But what I'm saying is when someone makes that many irrational decisions, it stops becoming this is a bad person and this person needs help. It starts to become sympathetic. When you look at the chain of events, no rational person would do that and make those decisions back to back to back to back unless they had a real life problem and issue that needed to be addressed. Right? And I got that epiphany by watching Terrell Owens say he's crazy. Terrell Owens says he's tripping. He needs to center himself. If Terrell Owens is telling you that, if Terrell Owens is looking at this guy and say, oh, man, you're a diva, I'm like, okay, this guy's a problem. Then I watched Joe's tweet. The second epiphany I had, when Joe said he'll never play football again, it dawned on me. I said, you know what? The other option is AB does not want to play for the Raiders, and he is doing whatever in his possibility to get out of that contract because he didn't pick the Raiders. He got traded there. He wanted to go to New England. He wanted to be able to pick the team he could go to, and the Steelers, out of spite because they were mad of how he was acting and he wanted to leave there, they tried to send him to the black hole where people, as players around the league, in the last decade and a half, Oakland is where you go to end your career. It is a career ender. That's where they sent Randy Moss. That's where they sent a lot of veterans who are unhappy to end their career and get lost. AB said, you know what? $30 million isn't enough. You can have it. I'd rather go play with the GOAT. So he started doing everything he could to get out of his contract. Now, it's going to sound like I'm jumping on after all this happened, but I put all my kids. This was the take I had prepared for Joe. I tweeted Joe, and I said, Joe, you're wrong, and I'm going to fire you up tomorrow when the mics come on. But they swept the rug out from under me, so we're not going to make news. And this take isn't going to go in the airwaves, and no one's going to be impressed. But that's my take, Joe. Your turn.
Well, I will agree that Antonio Brown wanted to get released, but in order for me to agree that he had been planning along the entire way to get released so he could go to the Patriots, he would have just done this in the spring. As soon as he got traded, you can put up a big stink and get traded then. And you would have been able to, if he would have made this stink in the spring, he would have gotten released then, could have signed with the Patriots, and he would have been able to sign for so much more money because he would have been had done at that point so much less damage to his career and to his image, where right now he has looked like the biggest jackass in NFL history for the last month. And the things that he did going back on his word in the last couple weeks and looking like the lowlife that he does has really reduced his value. And that's why he only signed for $9 million or whatever it was with the Patriots, where the top receivers, well, that's what he can possibly get in incentives. So we don't know what those incentives look like yet, but he's getting $9 million right this season, assuming he plays and doesn't hit all of his incentives. Between $9 and $15 million, where the top receivers in the game are getting over $20 million. And he clearly is one of the top, if not the top receiver in the game. So if he had this great plan of going to the Patriots all along, he would have acted like a jackass in the spring, got released, and then been able to go to New England at that point. So I'm not buying that this was a plan all along. I will say that I do think after he did the apology to the team, and he posted the John Gruden call, the no more BS, just play football phone call with fancy editing and
it was nice.
all that really
quality.
Good social media stuff that he gets. Apparently, he got the first class social media team, and ThomaHawk Show got the second class team, because I don't think we've had any videos that have had that many hits on YouTube, and I can't figure it out why, because we've clearly had much more breaking news than he has. But I think it was after he came back to the team and realized that they were fining him like $200,000 and they were voiding his guarantees. At that point, he goes, screw those guys. I want to get out of here. How do I get out of here now? And then that's when he blew up and then got released like a couple days later.
So you don't think, I mean, this is just, be honest with me, Joe. The helmet situation didn't seem ridiculous to you?
It was ridiculous, but he's a ridiculous person. And so that didn't surprise me. That wasn't out of the ordinary for him. That is right in line with something he would have done in Pittsburgh.
I'm not arguing that he's a ridiculous person, but I mean, that seemed ridiculously out of line. Like it seemed irrational. Like it seemed irrational for someone to just stop showing up to training camp. Like even, and not just that, it was a disconnect. So you can be an irrational person, but typically the irrationability, is that a word or did I make that up?
Yeah, for sure.
The irrational ability of it all, it coincides with everything else in life. It doesn't make sense to me. Like knowing what I know about AB, and we say this all the time on the show, he's a whack job, but he works his ass off. He practices, trains hard. For someone to skip training camps, for someone to miss practices, to someone to say, I'll retire without the helmet, but still be working out as hard as he was on a daily basis, which I know for a fact was the case. He wasn't sitting at home. He was still training that way. Like, that's the part to me where I'm like, yeah, this might be connected in that sense, because no one who is threatening to leave the game is practicing.
Do you guys think that Antonio Brown will last the season with the Patriots?
Ooh, that's a good question. I have no idea.
No. I don't think so. And honestly, I think it's going to come to a head sooner rather than later in New England, because right when Antonio Brown got signed by the Patriots, he posted this Instagram post. It was a really nice cartoon drawing of Bill Belichick like picking him up in a taxi or whatever it was and bringing him to the facility. Did you see that one, Hawk?
Yes, I seen it. It was
I don't have Instagram, so I just saw it on the Sunday shows. Okay. But anyways, so my point is, Bill Belichick hates social media. He hates airing any of your inside, not even your dirty laundry, just anything you do as a Patriot. Putting it on social media is like the biggest of no-nos. Yep. So I've been in those meetings. I worked for 2 Patriots coaches that were disciples of Bill Belichick, and they ran their programs exactly like Bill Belichick. And I know on Monday morning, they're going to beat the Steelers' ass. But one of the highlights of that meeting is going to be Bill Belichick humiliating Antonio Brown in that meeting. He's going to put that Instagram post up in front of the entire team. There's going to be all the scouts in there. There's going to be all the coaches in there. They're going to be the players and the trainers. And he's going to humiliate him. He's going to embarrass him just the way he does with Tom Brady and all other 52 guys on that roster. And he's going to tell them how we keep Patriots business in-house. We don't air any of our laundry out there. If I ever see this bullshit again, you're out of here. This is not how we do things. This is not the Patriot way. We're shutting down your social media account right now. We don't want to see any more of this. You may think you're above the team elsewhere, but this is your last stop, buddy boy. If he was John Dorsey, that's what he would say.
I can tell you are not a true Patriot. I can tell you've never stepped foot in that locker room the way I have. You haven't stood toe-to-toe, shoulder-to-shoulder.
I certainly haven't been there for any of those OTAs
Julian Edelman, Danny Amendola. You don't know what it's like in there. Let me tell you something about Bill Belichick.
Tell me.
The biggest facade that Bill Belichick puts on and has the people preaching and praising is that, yes, he's a mean cuss to everybody. And as you can tell, I watched Titans this week because he says he's the same mean cuss to everyone in the locker room. But he is the same mean cuss to everyone as it pertains to on the field. Gronk got away with a lot more than Cody, who was an undrafted free agent with the Patriots while I was there. Like, Belichick doesn't give a shit about that. When he gets inside the building, yes, Belichick will pull him to the side. Somebody will pull him to the side and say, yo, tone it down here. We need to do this. He's not going to come in out the gate and humiliate Antonio Brown, because what that does is it screws up the possibility of going forward. He wouldn't sign him to say, I'm going to see if he fits in here. No. He understands what he wants out of Antonio Brown, and he'll do whatever he has to do to get that out of him. Antonio Brown will assimilate into the culture of the New England Patriots, but it won't because he gets humiliated about social media.
But that's why I think it's going to happen right away, because he wants to make sure that he understands that you got to act differently now that you're a Patriot. And he wants that to change right away, because he doesn't want to give him any leeway right off the bat. Nope. He doesn't want to let him slide in and then try to slowly turn him into a Patriot. He wants that shit happen on day one. And that's why he's got to put his foot down. He's got to embarrass him, and he's got to see how he responds, because he wants to see if he gives the respect that he hasn't give anybody else to Bill Belichick. Bill wants to see how he acts when he's put in that position, when he's humbled in front of his teammates, if he's going to walk off and punt the football and tell Bill Belichick he's a cracker like he did to Mike Mayock, or if he's going to sit there and take it and go out and have the best practice of his life. That's what Bill wants to see. That's why he wants to challenge him, and it's why he's going to do it on day one. That's why we're going to see if this experiment blows up like your science experiments at Toledo in day one, or if he survives after the first day and he can assimilate to the Patriot way, he might be there for 5-6 years and win several Super Bowls.
Time will tell. We're going to have to check it out. I love the take that he's not going to do that with Bill Belichick.
Yeah, here's the last thing I want to say real quick.
Bill Belichick coached LT. Do we think AB is worse than LT?
Yes, LT wasn't a big. LT's issue were drugs and prostitutes and staying out late at night.
Yeah, social media is way worse than that.
But I'm just saying, like those were things that back when he played, nobody really knew about, because you didn't have the social media, you didn't have the media following. So those things were easily more swept under the rug and didn't become the problem of the team. But right now, everything
was high at games, Joe.
Yeah, but he was sacking quarterbacks high. He was sacking them 6 times in a game and breaking their legs in half. You probably played better when he was high. He needed that. But all right, last thing I want to say about the Antonio Brown thing that I'm interested to see is, like, when he released that No More BS, Just Play Football recording from John Gruden, I had to think, John Gruden didn't know that this phone call was being recorded. And I thought to myself, I wonder if that's illegal. So I looked it up, and I looked up the California recording law. California's wiretapping law is a 2-party consent law. California makes it a crime to record or eavesdrop on any confidential communication, including a private conversation or telephone call, without the consent of all the parties to the conversation. So I am curious. Do you think that John Gruden is going to sue and press charges against Antonio Brown for illegally wiretapping and recording his telephone call?
I feel like you're trying to get me to snitch, and that's not what I'm about. All right, Joe, snitches get stitches. All right, and it's one thing New England Patriots don't do is have conversations openly about wiretapping. So you're not going to trick me. You can give your take, but you leave me alone. All right? I don't want to lose my chance at the Ring of Honor. All right, next one. Am I tripping? We are beating points to a pulp today, John. Sorry about your time.
It's a lot to talk about.
It is
A lot of
Packers
passion
beat
here.
the Bears 10-3 on Thursday. I know, Hawk, you were there in Chicago for that one.
Yep.
Defense looked dominant. Rodgers looked healthy and spry. Guys, am I tripping? Or are the Packers a Super Bowl contender again? Joe?
Not right now. I know that you said that Rodgers looked healthy and spry, but what I saw from Aaron Rodgers is a guy that missed a ton of easy passes that he never misses. And I don't know if that's just because he's still getting used to Matt LaFleur's offense. He's not comfortable with the receivers and the coordination that those guys need to have, the timing that they need to have within this new offense. But the only time that I saw Aaron Rodgers being efficient and moving the ball down the field the way we expect is when he was just standing back there being Aaron Rodgers playing in the old offense. And I'm sure that Aaron was calling a lot of those plays. They were a lot of the plays that him and those receivers had a comfort level with. But to see Aaron Rodgers miss on some of those real quick slants where he turns around and it looks like it's going to be a run and he just fires it to a receiver that's got inside leverage on a corner, like on the backside, and to throw it into his feet was shocking. That's like something that the third string quarterback does in a preseason game. To see Aaron Rodgers do that and miss guys consistently was shocking to me. And I got to think that it's going to get a lot better. But before I say that the Packers are Super Bowl contenders after beating the Bears, I need to see Aaron Rodgers playing much, much better in this Matt LaFleur system. And I know the Bears are a good defense, but that wasn't the Bears that were causing some of the bad throws we saw from Aaron Rodgers that we never, ever see usually.
Yep. And also, he still believes the Browns are going to win the Super Bowl. So,
well, hey, you were there. Why don't you tell me what you saw?
You got it. You're the Wisconsin effort. I'm not even going to give any take there. You're the Wisconsin guy. I'm going to let you have it. I'm going to take the next. Am I tripping? Are we still? Am I tripping?
Am I tripping?
All right. Yeah, I'm going to take the next. Am I tripping?
Last one.
Okay.
The Vikings beat the Falcons 28-12 in Minnesota. Am I tripping, or is the Dan Quinn era coming to an end in Atlanta?
Nah, you're not tripping. I think it is coming to an end. The defense is a problem in Atlanta. It has been for a couple of years. Dan Quinn is a defensive coach. Anytime you're brought in from a side of the ball, they expect that side of the ball to be above and beyond. Mm-hmm. The Falcons' offense has always been pretty good. They have Julio Jones and Matt Ryan. They do pretty well together, with the exception of this week versus the Vikings because they look terrible. But Dan Quinn took over for defensive play calls, and now when you take over to make the play calls on defense, and you're a defensive head coach, and your defense has struggled for years, now it brings a little bit more pressure. The defense looked terrible yesterday. The Vikings ate them up. They ran the ball right down their throats. Kirk Cousins, I think, ended with 10 passes. They're paying him $84 million guaranteed to throw 10 passes a game. Yes, Dan Quinn. The seat is getting very, very hot. And if you don't know, you better know. You better fix it fast.
Kirk Cousins, the guy that was always been, well, he's going to lose, but he's going to put up great stats, all of a sudden is winning and throwing 10 passes for, I didn't even think he had 100 yards. What do you have, like 80 yards passing?
No.
That was remarkable. And I will say, since Kyle Shanahan has left Atlanta, that offense has not been the same.
Right.
And, like you mentioned, Dan Quinn's a defensive guy. If nothing else, your defense should be really good. And that does not bode well for his future.
Absolutely. All right, let's get into our last segment before we get out of here. This is 3 and Out. We're going to hit these quick because we hit everything very, very long.
3 and Out.
So, yeah, what do we got for our first topic, John?
Josh Allen is the first player to turn the ball over 4 times and win since Andy Dalton, one of Hawks' favorite quarterbacks, in 2013, which I think was Hawks' last season with the Bengals.
I was
right?
there. Yeah.
This is according to NFL research. Guys, your reaction to Josh Allen turning the ball over 4 times and beating the Jets in New York?
I'll say this because I watched this game, again, because I work 24 hours a day at NFL Network. Josh Allen, 2 of those, I think 3 of those turnovers weren't his fault. Mm-hmm. 2 interceptions were popped up, receivers dropped the pass, tipped, defense got it and returned it. And the other one was a snap that never touched his hand. Like, it was one of those situations where, like, the dumb offensive lineman, no offense, Joe, just spikes it right into his own crotch, and it never got to the quarterback's hands. And it was a fumble, and C.J. Mosley jumped on it. So Josh Allen actually played really good and outplayed Sam Darnold in this game, and they got away with a win because Sam Darnold and the offense did not do great.
Joe, who would you rather start a franchise with, Josh Allen or Sam Darnold?
Yeah, I like Josh Allen. Actually, I've got the Buffalo Bills. They're my surprise team to make the playoffs this season. I think that their defense is really pretty good, and Josh Allen's going to make some really good strides. He's shown that he's a dangerous weapon with his feet, and he's got a great arm. And I actually think Brian Daboll's their offensive coordinator there. I worked with him in Cleveland. He's got a really bright mind, and I think he's going to get a lot out of Josh Allen. And I expect this team to maybe challenge the Patriots for that AFC East crown.
Okay, Joe's clearly drunk. What's the next topic?
Between Cam Newton's outfit, Odell Beckham's watch that he wore on the field, and I'll even throw JuJu Smith-Schuster's outfit in there. Fashion statements are 0-3 so far this season, guys.
Okay.
What do you make of the fashion statements not picking up any W's this weekend?
Okay, Cam Newton, every time anything he wears is a fashion statement, number one. So you can't really go off Cam Newton because the outfit he wore today is no more ridiculous than the outfits he's worn the last 40 games. Odell's watch on the field alarms me a little bit if he didn't get paid by the watch company. That's an opportunity to get paid. And I'm not saying you take every opportunity to get paid because not all money is good money, Joe. You know that. You've done a lot of deals that you wish you weren't in those commercials, as ridiculous as you look.
There's a price for everything, Hawk.
Yeah.
So, you know, underwear model, you just got to pay me enough.
Just got to give you enough dough. Yeah. So, yeah, again, my take is if Odell didn't get paid to wear that watch on the field, I'm upset because you're drawing all that attention to yourself for what? They took a shellacking on a national scale because everyone's watching to see what you guys do that game, and they're all talking about the watch. Joe?
So my comments, I'm not going to add much to those, but my comments to you are Odell's watch is proof that some of this luxury good shit, they just make it so fucking expensive that it becomes only the most elite of the elite can afford it. And then because of that, it becomes somehow uniquely, strangely popular, and they sell enough of it to make an assload of money. And I think about like fancy purses and shit like that. And that's exactly what I think. Like, there's no way that this cost $100 to manufacture, but you're selling it for $300,000. Like, it's just a watch. Like, my cell phone tells time. I don't need a watch. Why is it $300,000?
What kind of car
because
do you drive,
some
Joe?
idiot will pay for it.
What kind of car do you drive?
Right now, I'm driving a Ram truck.
What year? Year and model?
I think it's a 2018. I'm not a big car guy, so it's not a good.
It is a good comp because you can get a
Comp
2015, a 2013, a 2011 that run just as good, get you to point A to point B for a lot less money, Joseph.
No, you're missing the point. The point is that if that truck was the exact same as the 2011, but this one cost $5 million, I wouldn't buy it. But there's some idiot out there that would buy it just because it was $5 million and everybody knew it was $5 million. And you bought it so that everybody knows that you have a $5 million car and that you can afford a $5 million car.
Yeah. All right.
I think what
That's
Joe's
why you
saying
wear
is
all
that
those.
I agree with him. I'm
Louis
just playing
shoes.
devil's advocate because it's a podcast and I need to argue the other.
I want to
point.
hear John. I want
Have
to
you
hear
guys
John's
ever
take.
wondered what time it was during a game? Did you need a watch when you're playing football?
I mean, I wondered in some of those blowouts, like,
Yeah, I
am I
was
going
going
to
to
get
say.
home like for the pizza delivery, or is this going to be cold pizza by the time I get home?
Honest to God question: how many times in the game? Because I know I did this all the time. Did you look up when we were getting our heads beat into a pulp at the scoreboard and say, "Geez, it's only the second quarter. There's
man.
still 7 minutes left in the second quarter."
I tell you, I never looked up at the clock until we got into the 2-minute offense, which when you're losing by a lot and the coach comes down and goes, all right, we're going 2 minutes from here on out. And it's like the third quarter and you're like, God, this is going to be long. Because basically that means you got one-on-one blocks the rest of the game against a defensive line that now all they are thinking about is getting sacks because all they're thinking about is stats. All they're thinking about is Pro Bowls and incentives and next contracts. And how do you get that? If you're a defensive end, it's, you get sacks. And when you're in 2-minute offense, you're going as fast as you can. And all you're doing is dropping back and throwing the football and taking chances, trying to hang on to the football and push the ball down the field. And it's a total nightmare for an offensive lineman. And when you're in the 2-minute offense in the third quarter, that means you're going to run roughly 30 plays in the 2-minute offense. So it's like 30 of the worst plays you can possibly imagine. And I'm wondering
funny.
when the hell is this going to be over with?
It's
So
the complete opposite for receivers.
Yeah, but so yeah, you're loving it. Oh, 2-minute offense. This is great.
Yeah,
stat
pad
time.
stat,
This is what,
stat padding.
pad my
Let's do
stats. Yeah, but I want to hear with Odell's watch. He got that for free for sure, right? Like that was clearly a marketing thing, right? There's no way he paid that amount of money for the watch.
I didn't think it was a marketing thing at first, and then I think Rafael Nadal wore one.
Yes, I did see a tennis player. I wasn't sure if it was Nadal.
It might not be Nadal, but a tennis player also wore the same watch during the U.S. Open. So then it made me feel like this is a marketing play.
It wasn't Nadal.
Like, because what are the chances they both wear the same watch?
Yeah.
Like the same day.
Nadal's was worth $750,000.
$750,000.
So my God, what makes these watches that expensive? Other than the fact that somebody will pay for them, what makes them that expensive? Like, are they solid diamonds? Are they? I mean, I can't even imagine what would make a watch that expensive.
Yeah.
Are they made from
You don't have
platinum?
an expensive watch?
Baby's tears, virgin tears, or something?
What kind of watch do you wear, Joe?
I don't really wear a watch, but if I do wear a watch, the Browns gave me like a real nice. Hang on, I'll show you. I've got it right here. I don't usually wear a watch, but the Browns gave me a nice Citizen when I retired. It was like the 10 years of service watch, and so I wear that. I wore that to church today if I ever needed to tell time. See if the minister's going a little long with the sermon. Checking that watch, making sure we're going to get out in time for the Browns game.
Tapping from the audience.
Yeah, I'm as you can probably imagine, I'm not a big jewelry guy.
Yeah.
I don't have any fancy watches, but
All right, I'm going to change up our last 3 and out. Is that okay with you?
Go for it.
We had Tom Brady going 6-0 against the Steelers at home. We're going to nix that, and we're going to talk about the body issue and the Eagles' offensive line being butt ass naked. In
So
ESPN
for those who haven't
magazine.
seen it,
yeah, it's the entire Eagles' offensive line, and they had all like the alternate covers or like they're doing a bunch of stuff. It's like that photo shoot meme where they're like, hey, cover your junk with the hard hat. This will be awesome. And there's like a bunch of weird stuff because they're naked. Anybody who does photo shoots naked, it's just a weird thing in general. But now it's like 5 offensive linemen, and then one of them there is standing very, very close. I just wanted to get Joe's take on offensive linemen being in the body issue. Is that a sense of pride to you, or are you like, yeah, no, or are you jealous that they didn't ask you to be in it as the first offensive lineman in NFL history? Like, I'm just curious of where you sit.
I've got no opinion whatsoever because
That's good for a podcast. Awesome.
the photos that they took didn't really make their bodies look good or bad. They're just kind of like there. Like the opinion that ESPN took was, all right, we want to put some fat offensive linemen on the cover, which all offensive linemen are fat. And the only way we can do that is if we really don't show their bad fatness. And so they've got them all covered up in situations where you just kind of see their bodies, but they're all like covered up strangely by different things and each other. Yeah. And so it's like, all right, yeah.
I don't know what's worse.
They're naked, but
I don't know if it's worse being described as being like a bad attribute or just saying that someone is just there. Like, I don't want anyone to be like, oh, how's Hawk? Oh, he's there.
He's just there.
Like, did you see Hawk? Yeah, he was just there. Like, I feel like that's worse than someone just telling me I'm terrible.
Like I look at the cover and I don't think like, wow, those bodies are amazing. Like in any way, like they don't look amazingly bad. They don't look amazingly good. They're just there.
Yeah.
There's no reaction. I have no reaction looking at that photo. Whereas I tell you what, Myles Garrett owes us a little bit because we put him in. The ThomaHawk Show put Myles Garrett into the body issue because
let's be very
nobody
clear.
talks about Myles Garrett shirtless more than you do, Hawk, but the ThomaHawk Show in general. So he can thank us for getting him noticed.
Thank us.
Nobody knew he had a great body until we talked about it and we got him into the body issue. So you're welcome, Myles.
This is a very, very weird thing to say on a podcast for a lot of reasons. Actually, I'm going to say a lot of weird things. Number one, I wasn't asking you to comment on the offensive line's body. I was just asking about them being in the magazine, but that's where you took it. That's fine. Myles Garrett, not me, not us, you. Number two. Number three, I have a picture in my phone that me and I think Corey Coleman took, like just joking around. And I realized like not too long ago, like just scrolling through like years old pictures, that I think you are naked in the background with your ass out, like in the picture. So I'm going to post that on Twitter. Yeah,
My
just really
reputation will
embarrassed.
be ruined.
Yep, and they'll put it in ESPN like the body issue.
The
just
body
as it is.
issue, the
And-
bad
and
body
guess what,
issue.
Joe? Guess how they would describe you?
I can't wait.
You were just there. I think that does
I was just there.
it for today's ThomaHawk episode. We appreciate you tuning in. Listen, if you've made it this far in the episode, A, you're a trooper. B, you're a real friend and family to us. C, make sure you are subscribed to the podcast. Rate us 5 stars. Send it to everybody you know. There shouldn't be a family member you have that doesn't know about the ThomaHawk Show if you are truly a member of the ThomaFlock. Follow us on Instagram, Twitter, Reddit at ThomaHawk Show. Hit us up on our Facebook group, ThomaFlock. Anything I'm missing?
Voicemail.
Email.
440-628-1376.
1376.
I
Leave us
appreciate
a
you trying to
message.
go from memory there.
I'm trying, man. I want to memorize this so that when I'm really in the jam and I get arrested and I get one phone call, I can call the ThomaHawk line and
That would
leave
be
a
amazing.
voicemail. Listen, tune in Wednesday for our midweek show. We're going to share with you share your questions, hot takes, voicemails, all of that, man. Hopefully we'll have a super special guest that we are working on now. I'm talking big. I am talking, I'm not going to say that he could be the future president. I'm lying. We actually have nobody lined up, but we will have somebody.
Yes.
Make sure you're watching. If you listen on audio this episode, go to YouTube, check the video out, because watching us on video is 10 times more pleasuring than actually just letting us massage your eardrums. All right, Joe, final thoughts. What do you got for me?
My final thoughts were, I feel like when the ratings come out after this first week, it's going to be an all-time high for NFL Week 1 because nobody played in the preseason. Nobody knew what we were going to get in Week 1. And I think that increased the hype for all teams.
Yeah.
Most preseasons up until this year, it seems, you got to see a lot of your team and you kind of knew what you were going to get. And, you know, some of that excitement maybe was dulled a little bit because you go all off season, no football. You get a little bit of preseason. It kind of whets your appetite a little bit. But because nobody played in the preseason, I feel like the anticipation was at an all-time high. And so maybe the NFL will revisit some of their thoughts about the preseason, but I think they might actually just stick with what we've got here because it was a really exciting Week 1, and I feel like everybody I talked to was absolutely hyped for this first week of the NFL season, even though Browns fans are feeling a little sad right now.
A little sad, but it's okay because there's always next week, Browns fans. Joe Hawk yourself.